Welcome to our webinar for families on supporting your student in the job and internship search. Good afternoon to our West Coast families, good evening to the East Coast, and good day to families joining us from around the world. My name is Karen Casella, and I'm the Director of New Student and Family Programs here at American University. It is really so great to see so many of you here with us for this session and investing this time to learn more about ways you can support your student. Now, families, some of you know that I'm also a double eagle. That means I have 2 degrees from AU. Like your student, I came to AU for an experiential education. As an alum, I've gone back to the Career Center repeatedly in my career. I also taught a class with an internship requirement for 9 years. So personally and professionally, this is stuff that I'm passionate about. Before I turn things over to our presenters for the evening, I have just a few housekeeping items. We're going to reserve time at the end of this session to answer your questions. You may, of course, submit them at any time tonight using the Q&A box on your screen. Now, folks, there are more than 500 of you signed up for this session this evening, and there's just me on the back end. So please be patient. If we don't get to address your question tonight, our last slide tonight will feature the contact information for our whole team. And lastly, you are always welcome to reach out to us at auparent@american.edu anytime with any question. With that, families, I'm going to pop off screen and turn the session over to Gahan Fernando, the Executive Director of the Career Center.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's great to be here, and thank you all for joining us. We have a really robust showing from parents and families today, and we're excited to have the chance to speak with you. As Karen said, I'm Gahan Fernando. I lead the AU Career Center, and I'm here today with a number of my colleagues, both from my office, that's Brian Rowe and Nathan Slusher, and we also have partners across campus who are working in the career space, and that is Andrea Carpenter from CoGod, as well as David Fletcher and Shane Cunningham from our SIS Career Center team. So I'm going to just start by giving you a quick overview, and Brian, if you would just turn the slide. Just give you a quick overview of the many resources that are available on campus to serve your students. My suggestion is that depending on where your student is located in terms of major and school, that they would start with the Career Center, the career office that serves them primarily. As you can see, there are 3 different sort of centers here, and I won't go through, you can read on the screen which each of our offices serve. But I just want you to know that we play nicely with each other, we partner closely. And what we try to do is to have the students start, as I said, with their school's career office. And then if there is a necessity and interest in doing any cross-pollination, then the career advisor or their contact in their appropriate school will help refer them over to the other team in order to help access appropriately the resources that are available there. With that, I think I'm going to just move over and talk a little bit about how we do this, like how do we think about career advising? As Karen mentioned, AU is known for its experiential education practice, and I'm sure many of you are wondering, like, how does that play out in reality? How does my student find an internship? And we're going to cover a lot of that today. Philosophically, just to talk for a moment about how we approach this, we put the student really at the center of an ecosystem at AU, which is, all these different folks that are up on the screen right now are here to help support your student in their career journey as they move forward. From the time a student is a first-year student, we want to get to know them, we want to get to see them, and different things for each stage. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about what's appropriate at what stage of the student's progression over the course of their time here. I will brag on us a little bit and say that, you know, the Career Center, every time a student comes in, as much as possible, we try to get them to fill out a little exit survey to gauge kind of, well, you know, were we meeting their questions, were we meeting their needs, and so on. And for many years, we've had a 99% satisfaction rating from our students. Of that 99%, 2/3 are rating us as exceeding or greatly exceeding expectations. So you're starting out from a place where the students who are using our services are really, really pleased with the services that they're receiving and feel like their needs are being met. One of the things that we want from you is to help us to partner with you, because we have a common goal, right? In this, that we want your student at the end of the day to get educated in the career process and to move themselves successfully through the university. And then when they get to the other side, whether it's to go on for further study or to pursue the job and employment of their choice, we want them to have the skills and tools to do that. So part of our goal is to have our students really be educated in their career process, right, as we move forward. We take our position, all of our offices are located on the academic side of the house. And so we take that mission very seriously, that we are part of the educational mission of the school. And really, it's not just the career offices, it's all of the university is invested in the success, in the career success of the students as we move forward. So an analogy I like to make, I'm sure you've heard the old thing about, you know, if you teach somebody to fish, then that's much better than just handing them a fish. And we like to follow that philosophy. Now, that said, we're not just here to, you know, we also get that students need some help in terms of making themselves successful in this process. And especially as they're starting out and they're nervous about finding, you know, their feet in the process, we want to be helpful with them. I have a niece who is currently a junior at a university, and it kind of brought it home for me that, you know, she has a lot of anxiety about even just sending out an application, and sometimes drags her feet doing so. And so I can really relate to where many of your students and where many of you might be in terms of wanting to help encourage and understand that they're having a little bit of a hard time with this. So to extend the analogy of fishing here, what we like to say is that we don't just say, now go forth and fish, you know. What we try to do is to have a well-stocked pond for them in which to fish. And in the upcoming presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the resources and some of the ways that we make that possible. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Nathan Slusher, who is going to talk a little bit more about some of the resources and curricular touch points, et cetera, in which students can engage in which, in order to, you know, find themselves and further educate themselves in the career development process.
Thank you, Gahan. I'm going to talk about career education, which is a nice slide for me to cover. My title is Director of Career Education and Outreach. So what I want to explain first, career education is about helping students understand the knowledge, skills, and experiences needed to successfully enter the world of work, as well as the processes they must go through to get there. This is important not just for helping them land their first jobs after college, but navigating the ever-changing world of work once they're there. Students today can expect to hold 12 to 15 different jobs in their lifetime. So career education helps prepare them for these future transitions as well. The traditional model of a career center that waits for a subset of the larger student body to take advantage of all it has to offer is a thing of the past. We are all of our offices actively cultivating opportunities to make our work and expertise more equitable and accessible. And we recognize that in doing so, a one-size-fits-all approach does not work for all students. So you'll see in the visuals on the screen here, they kind of reflect our approach to our work from efforts that reach the greatest numbers of students at once, all the way down to those that are the most individualized support that we can provide to students. So just to give you some examples here on the screen, curricular touch points. Every single incoming AU undergraduate takes the AUX American University Experience course, and a specific class section of that course is designated for career development. So everybody has a common introduction to career development at the college level. And then we can infuse career development into several other courses by partnership with faculty who invite us to their classes, as well as by actively getting out there and encouraging faculty to invite us to their classes. Other opportunities include internships for credit, and those are usually through department-specific means, and my colleague Brian will address that topic a little bit more coming up shortly. But we also offer career courses for students who feel like they just want to dive in and get the full experience. So a variety of curricular touch points here. We also offer independent programs and webinars. One of the things that has helped level the playing field with webinars is that we can put on programs that we used to do in person and reach more people during the day when they're available, or in the evenings when they're available, but we can also record everything and put it up on our YouTube channel for accessibility afterwards. You'll see on here too, we offer appointments and drop-ins for a variety of topics. And then we also curate a variety of resources for students who can access things at their own time, at their own space. We know the times we see email stamps come in sometimes from students include 11:30 or 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock at night. So we know by making resources available 24/7 through our website, through our school-specific resources, and through our career management platform Handshake, we are giving them access to a 24/7 career center. In addition to the webinars that we do, we provide lots of opportunities for students to engage with employers through job and internship fairs, industry days. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but that is important because it gives them an opportunity to prototype, to get out there and try things, to talk to employers, to learn more about what is expected in the world of work. And a significant portion of career education, helping students learn and understand the top skills that employers seek. So Brian, thank you. We'll advance to the next slide. As I said before, the world of work is ever changing, and students can expect to hold multiple jobs in their lifetimes, many of which may not even exist yet. And to help prepare for the jobs that don't yet exist, employers tell us over and over again that the people who are most adaptable to these changes are people who have developed strong skills in the areas you see on your screen. Just look at the changes that we've seen accelerate during the pandemic. So the career readiness competencies that are here were developed by our national association, NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, in conjunction with employers and career services offices across the country. Those competencies are career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, equity and inclusion, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and technology. For the vast majority of employers, specialized fields like medicine and finance accepted, they are recruiting for these skills more than any other factor, including major and GPA. And examples of how students develop these are through their liberal arts degrees in the classroom, where you would expect them to focus on things like critical thinking, communication, teamwork, and professionalism, but also through their part-time jobs and internships, student organization and involvement, volunteer and community engagement experiences. These competencies give us a common language to help students and our faculty, campus partners, and now you too, families, learn how to best articulate their accomplishments and experiences in their resumes, cover letters, elevator pitches, and interviews. So I will hand it off to my colleague, Brian Rowe now.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Hello, folks. I'm Brian Rowe from the AU Career Center. I am the director of Experiential Education, and Experiential Education in this context, my focus is internships. We get many, many questions from students, often from first-year students. I don't know where to begin. How do I start this? They see and they've heard that the internships are a core, essential pillar experience at AU, often paired with, excuse me 1 second. 1 second, sorry about that. This is a peer experience or a pillar experience at American University, along with study abroad, AU abroad, and the two often can be done together. But students so much ask, where do we begin? And where do I begin? How do I start this off? We strongly recommend that students, as soon as they can, come in and talk to their career advisor in their career center, in their career services office. We will discuss with them what they need to do to prepare for their internship experience. What are they thinking? What career field would they like to explore? And what's the timeline for their industry? Students will come in and say, hey, when do I need to apply for an internship? And that really will vary on by industry, right? So if you're looking at internships that may involve a security clearance, you need to apply often a bit of more than a year in advance that process would begin. Other organizations, they're much more flexible, and you're applying more close to the start date. So we want to discuss with the student what they're thinking. They often have some ideas of organizations that they like. What the career advisor can do is help them expand that pool, right? And think about organizations that do similar work that will help them to develop similar skills moving forward. So again, using resources like Handshake. All students at AU have a Handshake account. Handshake is where we direct employers who have internships and full-time jobs that's where they're posting, right? This resource covers the nation as well. So you're finding internships and other opportunities across the US and beyond, I believe, within Handshake. So that's a great start. Each career team, each career office is going to have other resources that enhance the job search and the opportunities available as well. For instance, one of the schools I work with, we use a Twitter account to highlight quality internships as well as jobs. So you'll find other resources. That's really why we want them to come in and talk to their career advisor about it. We want to make sure their job search materials, their resume and their cover letter are reflecting those skills that Nathan just mentioned, those NACE competencies. Those are those transferable skills that employers want. Another thing, students will come and say, am I ready? Do I have the skills an employer want? Well, do you have good communication skills? Can you talk about some of your experiences in high school, leadership positions in high school, jobs, volunteer experiences, perhaps internships already? What are the skills that you develop? Teamwork, organization skills, intercultural fluency skills. All of these are very transferable to the employers. Making sure those materials are ready. Coaching you, apply if you're a student, right? You're going to need to apply to more than 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 internships that you need to apply, keep applying. We will also certainly help with coaching and interviewing for your student as well. So, they will be trained, advised on the best approaches for that. When do students intern? So if a student is at AU for 4 years, I usually say not in the first year unless you're in a very specific program that has an internship built into it, right? Those do exist, but usually not in the first year, perhaps in the second year, probably in the third year, and yes, in the fourth year. And if you're here for 3 years instead of 4, we'd compress that a bit, right? But that's usually the flow that I would recommend. There are credit and non-credit options. So some students will seek credit. There's a credit option for every major at the university. Very few majors require an internship. There are a few, there are a handful that require it. But for most, it's absolutely an option. So yeah, I do want to also mention how we help students connect with employers. This is their way to explore. They're interested in a field. How do they learn more about it? So they're making a very informed decision as they're exploring into internships with the eventual goal of that first career that Nathan mentioned, that first job after school. We have multiple job and internship fairs each year, both in person and virtual, for instance, this semester. We have industry events, networking receptions. These are employers, often alumni, who are coming back to campus to connect with students, to inform students about opportunities, to talk them through with that. Again, employer meetups, certainly interviewing. We host and support interviewing for interns and full-time positions on campus. And then again, there are these other examples down the list of ways to sort of connect with employers and to learn, so that when you are applying for those internships, you're making a really informed choice to explore the position. So that's a bit on internships. I look forward to answering questions later. Right now, I'm going to hand it off to Andrea Carpenter, who's going to discuss COGOD-specific resources.
Thank you, Brian, and welcome everyone. I am privileged to serve as the Assistant Dean of Career Services in the COGOD School of Business. And in COGOD, we work very closely with our campus partners. And as an AACSB accredited business school, we also provide a full suite of business-specific career services. I'm going to explain a little bit about how we organize ourselves. We align our services around 8 career pathways. From the moment that your student starts studying business, we are focused on partnering with them to leverage their degree into a positive outcome. So we've talked a lot about that first career that your student might start after they graduate. And we are focusing on that again as soon as they start. We're helping them explore their interests. We're making sure that we're not, we certainly don't want them to rush into any decision, but we want them to have as much information as possible to be able to make informed career decisions and to be prepared for lifelong career development. And so with that, we explicitly align our services to students' career goals. We encourage them and support them in selecting a pathway that is aligned with the industry or function that they'd like to work in. They can update this pathway selection at any time, but it really just helps us provide personalized opportunities and support. And it helps us streamline services so that they know, our students are busy. They're in classes, many are doing internships, they're involved in leadership. And so we want to make sure that they engage, but that they engage strategically and that they're benefiting from the resources and opportunities that, again, are aligned to what they want to do. So students can easily see the alumni and employer panels, the recruitment-focused events, the employer site visits, the coaching, and the career communities that are aligned to their specific career goal. So for example, if your student is interested in working in marketing, they'll want to attend the marketing panel. They will see the networking event that is aligned to marketing. They will be able to see the marketing and communications recruitment event. They can join our marketing career community to be paired with an alumni mentor. They can participate in practice interviews with marketing alumni and employers. They can join our marketing LinkedIn group to network. And they'll be meeting with our marketing pathway coach, again, really helping them leverage their experience, leverage their skills and their interests into being able to launch successfully into a career in that space. We also have world-class tech platforms. We provide AI-powered resume and LinkedIn feedback, as well as business-specific career exploration. My colleague Nathan mentioned that often when students are thinking about career, it might be 11 o'clock at night, it might be 1 o'clock in the morning. And so we want to make sure that our students have access to a full range of online virtual resources so that even if our office is not physically open at that moment, they can get the career support that they need. And we find that that pairs really well with the personalized support that they, of course, are getting from us as well. And again, we are providing these services and resources in close partnership with the Career Center and our partners across campus. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, David Fletcher, with our School of International Service.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. Thank you, Andrea. Good evening, families. My name is David Fletcher. I'm part of the Office of Career Development for the School of International Service. I'm one of the advisors. I work with a team of other professionals to provide services to our students. We work in collaboration with our partners at the main Career Center and with COGOD in the COGOD Office of Career Engagement. We have at SIS resources that provide additional tailored support to students who are focused on international relations careers. When we work with SIS students, we direct them to our SIS career webpage, which is found through Handshake. And I really wanted to stress to families that Handshake is the platform that all students have access to, all students have a profile on, and it really is the starting point for their academic or for their focus in their career. One of the things that I need to point out is that there are 82 links on the resources page on Handshake. This encompasses all of the links that they need from all three of our offices for them to move forward. On our particular website, students are able to find information on one-on-one advising, how to set up appointments for resume reviews, how to find links to programming and events. We offer 8 drop-down menus for services. We offer 12 drop-down menus for events and programs. I just wanted to point out with programming, one of the events that I just put on this afternoon, so if I seem a little bit tired, I am. I had over 30 students attend virtually for alumni talk about their careers with the State Department. Next month, we'll be putting on a particular program on legal careers, and these were open to every student at our school from all the different schools. In addition to the website, we encourage our students to really become familiar with all of the resources. Handshake is an incredible place for them to put a profile, upload their resume, have employers find their information without the student having to do much work. Also within our website, we have a specific parents guide, which I would like for all of you to take the occasion to look at. That has 9 drop-down answers to frequently asked questions, how you can be supporting your student. And I wanted to talk about how we focus on government employment. We are up to date on hiring practices. In fact, we are putting together a program on specific federal government hiring to be put together later this semester or at the beginning of the fall. We keep a real finger on the pulse of hiring outlook and what has been going on during COVID, what has been best practices. We talk to employers, we talk to alumni, and we share that information with students, whether through panels or through one-on-one advising. The entire gamut of industries your students may be interested in are really highlighted in the programs and the events that are put on through the main Career Center, through COGOD, and through ourselves. And we are very well-versed now at virtual interviewing, employment, and our own delivery of programs through Zoom. We've all become very accustomed now to remote delivery of services. For those of you with an international student, we want to make sure that you're aware of our student support Every one of our offices has specific resources for your students. We also have an International Student and Scholars Services Office, which they should be aware of and go to if they have specific questions about their visa regulations and employment in the United States. So with all of that, we do encourage parents and families to be well aware of what resources are available. And then if we could go to the next slide to point out some of the upcoming events. So these are events that are recruitment events that allow your student to participate either in active recruitment at a job fair, or in a more passive way, it may be a panel where they can learn best practices. They can find out information on how to apply to these areas. So just to run through these very quickly, Campaigns, Congress, and Lobbying. That's an event that went on today. It was a hybrid, so in-person and virtual and in-person, and will be continuing for this week. Security clearance fundamentals for those individuals going into the intelligence community. Government, education, and nonprofit. Marketing and communication. Working for justice. Analytics and IT. Analytics and IT showcase. Spring and job internship fair. And I really want to stress this. This is coming up in another month and a half. This is our showcase fair that comes up every semester, fall and spring. This year, we're back to in-person for the first time in 2 years. Students have been asking for a return to in-person. And then sustainability and environmental career panel and networking, as well as a spring and job fair that is virtual that will be coming up in April. These events really do put students front and center in front of employers and alumni. And it's essential that they're aware of these events coming up, and they should try to make whatever arrangements they can to be part of them. With that, I wanted to turn it back over to my colleague, Gihan Fernando, to wrap up our PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Yeah, I hope this has been helpful to you as we're getting started. And I just wanted to summarize kind of a few points that we want to make sure that you are taking away from this and working with your student to help us help them as they move forward. So the first is that there's all these events, right, that we've talked about in that well-stocked pond that we referred to at the beginning. There's a numerous number of events at which we have students work with, have opportunities for students to connect with alumni or employers or both across, whether it's programs or job fairs, et cetera. And that's happening across the course of the semester. And so obviously we can create these events, but we need students to show up. Increasingly, I'll add to what David was saying with the 2 signature events that we're having in terms of the job fairs. So we are, as David mentioned, we are doing our first in-person job fair on March 30th, and then a virtual iteration on April 6th, because we're still finding that there are a lot of employers who are either uncertain about what modality they're going to be in right now, or are interested in, are just opting for having a virtual session rather than an in-person session. And so at this point, we're saying students should be taking advantage of all of these opportunities. And it's not only to RSVP, it's also to show up. We're seeing very significant drop-offs between registration and people who are actually showing up at the event. That's normal, we anticipate that. But again, if the student doesn't go to an event, then they're sure that they're not going to have the opportunity to work with that particular employer who is participating in that event, right? So please help them stay on top of the information that's coming out. All students receive a weekly email from the Career Center, which highlights the various events that are happening, both for that coming week and then, other big things that are happening over the course of the semester. And I would encourage as a practice that students really refer to and read that email closely and calendar things. We don't expect them to come to every single thing that we're offering because there's really way too much. But we do suggest that they do look at that closely, calendar things for themselves, and then RSVP for appropriate events in Handshake. Second point is get in and see a career advisor or a peer advisor. All our offices also have more experienced and trained students who are there to help students, their peers, and who are great facilitators. And sometimes it's less intimidating for a student to talk to a fellow student about basic kinds of things. And our students are trained to also to know when it's really not appropriate for them to be answering a question, but ready to refer it to one of the career advisors. But that's often an easy way for your student to get in at very short notice. Mostly there's a peer advisor on duty pretty much at most times. And so that drop-ins, when people just pop in the office or do a virtual drop-in, that would be an opportunity for them to just have a quick question answered. Similarly, career advisors are available for both for scheduled appointments, of course, for more in-depth questions, and also for drop-ins periodically over the course of the week. And finally, as we have been referencing, there's a ton of resources between the various websites that we have, the career websites that are available. Whether or not the student is using our resources in the office, meaning in person or meeting with a career advisor, whether in person or virtually, these resources are great in that, as I think Nathan mentioned, when the student's sitting there at midnight in their PJs and suddenly learns that they have an interview tomorrow, here's a quick way that they can access a bunch of resources that they can help themselves to. Or alternately, if a student is going to come in and meet with an advisor, that appointment to review a resume, let's say, is going to be just so much more productive if the student has already gone to the resume resources online and taken a stab at drafting something. However bad it might be, it's kind of like, they're going to start out and use that appointment much more productively in terms of their time and the advisor's time and moving them forward in their process. So the last thing I'll leave with you is that I don't want you all to panic. I know that there's a lot of families out there who are concerned that their student has been trying for some weeks and now has not yet landed an internship. This is a process that takes time, and it is a process, right? It's not like a one and done kind of thing. And also for those who are more looking at summer for their first internship or for an upcoming internship, this is really early still. Yes, there are some internships for which you have to apply significantly in advance, but the vast majority of them are not going to be even open for application until later, right? Most employers are normal people who will hire closer to the time when they actually have a need. So keep that frame in mind as you're thinking about this. With that, we'll turn it over to some of the questions that might have been coming in. And Karen, I don't know if you want to share any questions or thoughts that you've been monitoring in the chat. I haven't been able to follow quite as closely.
There's certainly been a lot of questions, and I want to thank you all panelists for sharing and sort of previewing to our families the kinds of resources and supports that we have in place. Let's see how far we can get with these questions. And families, again, if we don't get to your questions this evening, our contact information is here on the slide, and you're always welcome to reach out to AU Parent at American, and we'll help connect you to the right person to answer your question. Nathan, I think I want to go to you first. I feel like you and I have had a couple of these conversations about what advice do we share? If there were 3 things that we think a first-year student should do to engage with the Career Center, what might that look like? And then, what should they be looking at as sophomore year, junior, senior? I know it can feel sometimes like there's a big race and you need to do everything all at once to take advantage of everything that AU has to offer. But how do we help kind of spread this out and get a sense of the timeline?
Sure. The best thing a first-year student can do, of the 3, you said 3, and you hit my talking points, the nail on the head. The first is to activate their Handshake account, to claim the Handshake account that we create for them using their AU login credentials. Every student gets an account. It's a single sign-on experience. They claim the account and make that profile their own. It provides an experience, a curated career experience, not unlike using a Netflix algorithm that becomes familiar with your movie viewing habits. This becomes familiar with your career interests and the positions you explore, the organizations you explore, the interests that you specifically tell Handshake that you are interested in. And it provides an increasingly tailored experience based on those interests. Handshake also is how you schedule appointments with advisors. It's how you access job and internship opportunities. It's how you register for all of our events. We have lots of resources that are password protected in there for our students, some things that we pay extra subscription fees for. So Handshake is the place to start. And the first thing to do is claim that account by logging in the first time. The second thing I would say is schedule an appointment with a career advisor. Even if you have no idea what you want to do, you're not even sure what you would talk to a career advisor about, the earlier that we can start the conversation and just get to know you and talk about your interests, the better off you'll be, because that can help us put together, as you were talking about, Karen, a structured plan for the next few years. We can check in next year about this, and we can follow up in your junior year regarding your internship question about this organization. But doing so early really helps us get set there. And for any student who hasn't done that yet at any level, we encourage you to go ahead and schedule that first appointment with us, because the sooner we have that first conversation, the sooner we can start helping you tailor your plan. And the last thing is, especially in the first year, you have done a lot of work to get into the university, and you've reflected that on a resume that you created to get into the university. And that resume is not exactly the kind of resume that employers are going to be looking for. So we want to work with you individually to update your resume now to make it a college level resume to be used for those part-time jobs, internships, to continue to build your experiences while you are in school, so that when you launch, you've got a nice full resume full of all of the experiences you have taken advantage of while you're at AU.
Excellent, thank you. And Nathan, we've all been talking about the Handshake app, but just correct me if I'm wrong, but this is only an app that students can access, right? So families don't get to see this, right? Students access it, and they can find and download that app through the Career Center website, right?
Right. It is a student-based platform. They access it with their AU credentials, so we can't give out accounts beyond the student accounts. It's a web-based platform, but there is also an app, so they can do it on their computers. They can do it in an app as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So I think that some other questions that have come in are really like wondering, given COVID and the shifts to not only the workplace, but like the student experience, right? There's some gaps in the in-person experiences for our students, but maybe some of you can speak a little bit to what you're hearing from our employers and how they're navigating this, because it's not just that students have been doing their studies remote, it's that much of the workforce has been working remotely. So let's talk about what we're seeing for trends and predictions in the field. And I open that up to anybody who wants to jump in.
I'm happy to start with that, Karen. One of the things that we have seen really from the beginning of the pandemic, obviously right at the beginning of the pandemic, we were very worried, as was everybody, about what is this going to mean in terms of jobs and so on. And what we saw was there was absolutely a dip in internships and jobs, right at the beginning. And for about the first 6 months, we saw everybody was kind of regrouping, right? And just like we did and students did adapt to virtual learning and virtual settings, we saw employers very, very quickly adapt to providing work opportunities virtually, whether those are internships or real jobs, right? Full-time jobs. We also saw that, and I'm sure many of you have seen this and read this, is that the college educated and those who are able to work remotely, right? The nature of the job is one that makes it possible to work remotely, has meant that college graduates are much less impacted by the economy. And in fact, again, many of you are probably seeing and hearing this, is that in light of the Great Resignation, sometimes, students these days who are graduating into the market, depending on their backgrounds and profiles, are in quite a reasonable position. I'm not going to say it's easy or the jobs are dropping out of the sky, but at the same time, it's not as bad as I had thought it might be. And in fact, it might be significantly better than I had thought it might be. And we're hopeful that that trend will continue. We're in the process right now of assessing the outcomes for the last graduating class of the 21 May graduates. And we usually, our assessment point for those data are at 6 months after graduation. That's sort of a national standard. And the preliminary data, which we're not ready to release yet, but my preliminary view of it is quite positive and in line with what it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, if I can weigh in on the internship situation, you're seeing a lot of options in DC that are listed as hybrid. So that may mean, given the prevailing situation, you can come into the office. And I think face-to-face is good when it's, safe and productive. So you're seeing, but you're getting an added flexibility, which may be, I think that sounds like a good thing. You're getting a little more hybrid sort of option. And I don't think the hybrid options are going to go away either. I think they're going to maintain that hybrid functionality. There is some variation in industries, obviously. So again, intelligence internships are a little hard to do virtually. That doesn't seem to work very well. But for the most part, I'm seeing a lot of virtual options or flexible hybrid options. And our internship listings are, I would say, surging too. I know I work quite a bit with students from the School of Public Affairs and School of Communication, and we're seeing very robust internship listing numbers for those schools.
I would just say too quickly, as an anecdote, I met with a first-year student last Friday, and she sent me a follow-up email. She wanted to explore internship possibilities for the summer following her first year. So we were talking about that, and she sent me a follow-up saying, I've done a lot of research and I see a lot of summer internships in the field I want to pursue are remote only. Should I wait? And I wrote back and I said, well, let's talk. My quick take is not necessarily, but let's talk. So we had a follow-up call this week and I explained, what would you be doing if you weren't doing the internship? And she said, a part-time job. I said, well, that's another skill building experience, part-time job at home. So that is totally valid and relevant. At the same time, I encourage her not to completely rule out a virtual only internship because we know the world of work has shifted drastically in the last 2 years. And we know, as they were saying, remote work, hybrid work are not going away. So an internship that is hybrid or gives you skills working remotely is actually helping prepare you for what you will face in the world of work when you graduate.
Thanks all. I love this. And Brian and Nathan, I think you're hitting on a couple of points that a lot of families have expressed interest or concern or questions around. One that's come up a lot this evening is, can my student find an internship opportunity outside of Washington, D.C. or even internationally? And what might that look like and how might they find these?
Right. For international options, one thing I mentioned how study abroad and internships are kind of these pillar experiences at AU. We have AU abroad centers in Nairobi, Madrid, and Brussels. Within those settings, so within that structured setting, you have the opportunity to intern, right? And our staff in those three centers are helping students. There is a bit of a matching process, obviously, because it's a little difficult to sort of, how many of us have a robust Brussels network, right, that they can call upon for internships. So there is that possibility that's really supported within those three centers with very high quality internship experiences in those three centers. We do have other resources, online resources to help students look for internships internationally, for instance. again, there's that can be complex because it depends on the rules and regulations and laws of the individual country that you're looking at. So that's all very different. Nationally, however, so we're very used to helping students find experiences all over the US. As I mentioned, Handshake is sort of a national platform. So you're having employers in Los Angeles and Chicago and Houston and Miami, they're all contributing to Handshake because many of the career centers at universities in those locations are also using Handshake for that. So that's an option. Also, there are other online ways of finding listings. Networks, AU alumni are fantastic. So talking to AU alumni, networking with AU alumni in a locality of your choice is actually another great way to help find those opportunities.
Thanks so much. All right, so I know a lot of other families are wondering, we've got folks who've invested not a few dollars in their students' AU education, and the graduation is on the horizon. And we've got some families who are wondering, are their students going to get return on this? When should our seniors or grad students approaching graduation be starting in earnest with their career search? What do you recommend?
I have a little something here. So Gihan has a great analogy with that stocked fish pond, right? So those are the opportunities. We're not handing people jobs and internships. We're teaching them how to do this so that as they move through the arc of their career, they're going to be able to do it themselves, right? With, of course, some assistance. For me, I think of the networking process, right, as a garden. So if I'm having you all over for a salad dinner party, right? What I don't do the night before you're all coming over, I don't take a handful of seeds, throw them out into my garden, slam the door, and be like, oh, tomorrow there's going to be a salad. That's not going to happen, right? If I'm having you all over, I need to, well in advance, months in advance, take care of my garden, plant my seeds, fertilize them, water them, all of that, prune them, harvest, all of that before I can have my party. Networking is a lot like that, right? We often think about networking when we really are job searching. Like, I need a job right now, let me network. It's two different headspaces. So for those students who are in that final year, if a student comes to see me and they're in their final year, I want them to come as soon as possible so that we can talk about gearing up for the networking. If you're a year out, most jobs, it's way too early, right, to apply. You're not really seeing the jobs that you're going to be, ready for as you graduate. But are your job search materials ready? Are they the best they can be? Are they projecting transferable skills, maybe industry-specific skills, depending on where you want to go? And then have you grown your network? One thing we're trying in the School of Public Affairs and with our partnership with the School of Public Affairs, something called Public Affairs Connect, we're really matching alumni with juniors, right? And I'm training them on how to do informational interviewing with these alums. So they're going to learn those skills about how to grow their network and their social capital within an industry of their choice. So, even before you think, oh, I need to put resumes out there to specific job openings, I want to talk to those students as they're approaching graduation, really about how, do you know who's doing what you're going to want to do? And then how are you connecting with them so that you have this network? So,
if I could add something quickly, Karen, to that, part of how we also help them prepare is partnerships in the classroom and working. Every student has to take a senior seminar as part of their AU core requirement or capstone, depending on the language used by the department. And so we try very hard to partner with instructors of senior seminar courses so we can get in there during their senior year and help them with their resumes or their networking, their LinkedIn profiles. So that's one other thing that we're actively trying to do. But the reality of what we are experiencing as a society with the challenges that we faced in the last 2 years and just the toll it's taken on our mental health and our ability to do multiple things at once. We have seen in the summer of 2020, the end of the spring semester, our student traffic dropped to almost nothing because students were focused appropriately on adapting to how do I be a student in a totally remote world. But then our traffic in the summer, as soon as classes were over, spiked, and we had higher appointment traffic than we've ever had in the summer before. And we saw the same trend last summer. As the spring semester, we recovered to our normal levels of appointments, but summer we saw higher traffic than before. And so we are recognizing that students right now, as much as we are trying to get them to do things and help them do things before graduation, many of them, the reality is they're not able to just deal with that while they're trying to finish school at the same time. So we are also here after graduation. And our services continue to be available to them after they graduate. And if they haven't been able to do anything, we will still be here to support them at that time. So I just want to make sure people know that.
Thanks so much, Nathan. I think we've got a few minutes left to see what kind of other advice you might have to families about how they can support their students. But I do want to check one thing. I don't want to let this opportunity go. Gihan, our families are really well connected. And many of the parents on this call tonight probably have openings for internships or for entry-level positions at their own firms or offices. Gihan, how can a family member post to recruit for an AU graduate in their own office?
Thank you so much, Karen. You are wonderful for raising that very important point, and we'll pay you later. So it's really easy. I'm going to give you my direct email is gihan@American. So my first name @american.edu. And you can send me an email. That's a great starting point. You can also go to our webpage and look, and we can direct you appropriately from there if that's easier for you. And it's american.edu/career center is the general career center webpage. And there's a section of that webpage on the homepage is for employers, which you would be in that instance, right? So then you can go in there and there's good direction how to do that. But if it's easier, just to send me an email directly and we can then move that forward appropriately to the right people in my office or in other offices across the campus in order to get it up and running and available for you. And also not only just to post it, but potentially to promote it also to targeted, in addition to posting it broadly, we would want to also then potentially target particular populations of students who might be good fits for it so that we could send them particular information about it. And you'll get a better pool, hopefully, from that in that instance.
All right, anybody want to weigh in with some parting advice for family members about how they can best support their students with research?
I'm happy to share. I would just encourage you, really echoing what my colleagues have said, please encourage your students to come and see us. And certainly we want students to be taking advantage of their resources and to be preparing for those appointments. But sometimes we do hear from students who've waited too long. And when I say waited too long, just waited longer than we would have hoped that they would, and maybe they've missed a few opportunities that could have been a good fit for them. And sometimes students say, I feel like I need to have it together before I visit the Career Center. And we want to emphasize we are here to support your student. So and often that means some students who may not really be sure what they want to do or are feeling overwhelmed, please encourage them to come see us. We want to help them navigate that process. We want to help them put together a manageable career strategy that they can balance with their other responsibilities. And a lot of times what you see, Gihan mentioned that really high satisfaction rate. And I think that's because often students feel relieved after they visited the Career Center and realize, okay, I have a partner in this and I have some manageable action steps, and I have a sense of the recruiting cycle for some of the things that I might be interested in. And so that would just be some of my parting advice is really encourage your student. You do not have to have it all figured out before you come to see us. That is what we are here to help support you to do. And really getting to know us, the earlier the better, because then we can give you a sense of how to spend your time over school.
Can I jump in for just one last comment before we run our program to its conclusion? I echo Andrea's sentiment about students needing to come in. I've seen a lot of messages saying my student's frustrated. They've applied to a dozen or more internships. I can tell you, your student may apply to 100 internships. If they're not doing it correctly, they're not going to have a positive result. What is it that Einstein says about doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result? Tell your students, we're here for a reason. If this were intuitive, if it were something easy to do on their own, we wouldn't exist. We're here because this is a process that takes some guidance. I work along with my colleagues hand in hand to get students to fix their resumes. And I'm saying that word fix because almost every resume I view has problems. Cover letters that are generic, have the name of the wrong employer embedded. Will certainly get them eliminated. And bad interview skills where your student is saying, I'd like to be your intern. These are problems that we help address, we fix, and it's amazing how the student suddenly has success. So please tell your students to meet with us, set up appointments. They can come in and talk, and we will help them to navigate this very difficult process. Thank you.
I'll also say, as I mentioned in my intro, I had the chance to teach students for about 9 years in an internship class, and families, I do think it's helpful to bear in mind that not every internship is the same. And sometimes there may be some allure or draw to an office or a candidate or something that seems splashy and like it's going to advance your career. But if the substantive work isn't there, then your student's going to be frustrated. So I think that what I hope you're hearing from this team is we're all trying to help your student find the opportunities that are really going to add to their learning and educational experience and help them develop the kinds of skills that move them forward, not just a name that they get to add to their resume, but something behind that name that they can carry forward. Any other thoughts, panelists? All right,
just to reiterate, if your student has no idea what they want to do, we can help. We have help for that. They've got kind of an idea, we can help them refine that. If they're laser focused on an idea, we can help move that forward. And sometimes the student will go back and forth between those two states. We can help.
I love it. We can help with that. Remember, your students are getting outreach from this team every Monday right into their inbox. Just remind them to go ahead and take a look and just poke around and maybe use it as a conversation starter to see what they're interested in or what they're responding to. Families, we're going to make a recording of tonight's session available to you after the event. I've put into the chat the link where you can find more about this and other upcoming webinars. And with that, I want to thank my panelists for this evening and thank you, families, for your attention and engagement. And we'll see you next time. Good night.